Hello and welcome to the Timeform and Sporting Life National Hunt season preview for 2021-22. I'm Ben Linfoot, delighted to be joined by Matt Brocklebank of Sporting Life and Dan Barber from Timeform to discuss Horses to Follow. You may have gathered from the big advert behind us. Yeah, we are in association with the Timeform Horses to Follow Jumps edition for 2021-22, and we'll be picking out some horses from the book amongst others as we preview the season. So gents, without further ado, let's crack on. We're going to go through a hurdler to follow, a chaser to follow, a novice to follow, a handicapper to follow, and we're going to finish, so hang around for this, we're going to finish with an anti-post bet for the season from the three of us. So Dan, we're going to start with you and the hurdlers. Who is your hurdler to follow for the upcoming jump season?
I sort of feel a bit pot committed with this horse. It's Paso Doble. I was asked by Racing TV and the book for my specific one who I'd want to follow whatever the discipline at the start of the season, and I went for him. I liked him a lot on the flat for Jim Bolger. He looked a thorough stayer at middle distances, ended up at Dundalk and it just wasn't enough of a test for him, but he was still running to Timeform figures in the 90s. He made his hurdling debut for Nichols in Adonis and wasn't at all disgraced, and then he made short work of them at a short price next time at Kempton. I thought he'd run better at Chepstow on his recent reappearance in the Persian War. He didn't, but I have a theory that a lot of Nichols horses were winning, but not many were winning competitive races, and he was very weak in the market. So because I'm sort of 3/4 of the way in with him anyway, I might as well stick with him, because I do think a lot of what I thought was positive about him at the start of the campaign still rings true, even though on the face of it Chepstow was bad. And the upside of Chepstow, if there is one, is not only do I think he'll come on for the run, is we'll probably get a bigger price about him next time, because he was flat.
Paso Doble for Dan. Matt, I'm going to waltz on to you for your
yes,
hurdling selection.
Strictly speaking.
And this, an interesting mare you've picked out.
Well, yeah, the one that springs to mind is Honeysuckle, who's favourite for the champion hurdle again. But I'm going for another Kenny Alexander-owned mare called Galwaz, who Willie Mullins seemingly last season was really keen on right from the start of the season. She did start well. She won a couple of times at Thurles in really impressive fashion. The wheels came off just a little bit after that, and then she ended up at Cheltenham and ran no sort of race at the festival in March. But I think subsequent events showed that she definitely wasn't at her best there at Cheltenham. She went to Fairy House. She pushed Sky Ace really close that day. Sky Ace having finished fourth at the festival in the race that Galwaz ran in. So I think that very much proved that she was over those issues, whatever was wrong with her at Cheltenham. And then she went to Punchestown and bolted up. She won by 10 lengths from a decent yardstick in second. I think that was a really fine way to end the campaign, and going into a new one, who knows kind of where the ceiling of that ability is. Now, I'm sure we'll look back to this in terms of anti-post tips, but I could see her rocking up for the festival, the mare's hurdle. I think there's loads more improvement to come from her. Not going to go chasing, I don't think. She's not really got the size and scope for that, so another year over hurdles.
Don't be giving away your anti-post advice just yet, Matt. We're going to save that for the end, as promised. My hurdler to follow is Echoes in Rain for Willie Mullins. I think she might end up being a champion hurdle contender. Looking at her novice season last season, really impressive at Fairy House. Came out and won the Grade 1 at Punchestown on her last start. She's a bit feisty, she can be a bit fiery, wears a hood, has had trouble settling a little bit in the past, but I think as she's progressing into better races and a good strong gallop over 2 miles is going to be absolutely fine for her. She is 14-1 in the champion hurdle market at the moment, and hopefully she might progress into a contender. I think she's got something about her. Echoes in Rain for the Willie Mullins team. Okay, on to chasers to follow, and we're going to start with you, Matt, with this one, because you've picked out a Paul Nicholls horse, and out of all the hundreds of chasers we could have gone for, I actually picked the same horse, but we'll hear why you like this one for in the Malcolm Denmark Silk.
Yeah, well, we both like Next Destination. I think the obvious question is what's not to like about Next Destination. He's a fantastic horse. Had a really good record over hurdles, 4 from 6. His strike rate over fences last year, 2 from 3. And even in defeat, he went out on his shield at the Cheltenham Festival in the National Hunt Chase. There was a slight change of target late doors. If you remember Festival Week, he was potentially going to run in the RSA Chase, the 3 mile novice chase. Ended up over the 3 mile 6. I suspect he's probably one of those that wouldn't have minded the National Hunt Chase still being over 4 miles. He stays so well. He stays all day He loves winter ground, and he jumps fantastically. Now, obviously, he went down behind Galvin, who's come out and franked the form this season. I do think with Paul Nicholls' horses like him, he's not going to waste bullets with Next Destination. He's clearly been a fragile horse throughout his career, previously with Willie Mullins, of course. But Paul's done a really good job with him. I think they were delighted with that run at the festival in second. Let's be honest, most British trained horses really struggled in some of those novice races at Cheltenham. He put up a fantastic effort in defeat. And he's rated 153. Now, I'm not totally sure yet where he's going to start. There's talk of Haydock potentially, but he's got a few bullets to fire in that race. And the Ladbrokes Trophy looks so obvious to me. I think he's double figure price, one of the favourites, obviously. But 153, I think there's still a little bit of wriggle room with his handicap mark. And Newbury, soft ground, round there, I think he's got a fantastic profile for that, and I expect him to be, wherever he rocks up, he'll be cherry ripe first time out.
He screams Ladbrokes Trophy horse to me. He's won his novice at Newbury. He's a proper stayer. Paul Nicholls has got a lot in the stay and chase department, hasn't he, to juggle around. He's got Surname, he's got Frodon, he's got Clanders Oboe. So perhaps, he's be looking at Down Royal and Weatherby and different targets, but I'd be staggered if Next Destination didn't go for the Ladbrokes Trophy.
I'd like him to look to Chepstow, try and do what Elegant Escape tried to do, or Synchronized tried to do all those years ago. Try and just outclass horses. Native River.
It's that type of horse, I think, isn't it?
Well, if it came up soft, you'd have to throw in the Grand National as well as a potential long-term target for him.
Yeah. Interesting horse, Next Destination. Dan, who's your chaser to follow?
A disclaimer, he's never even run over fences. I just had a strong inclination from Weatherby the other day that this horse is going to be a significantly better chaser. And it's Tommy's Oscar for the ridiculously prolific Anne and Ian Hamilton team. They're always the leading permit holder in Britain, but they've raised their game tenfold in the last couple of years. I mean, they work with Nutswell and Bavington Bob. There's so many Pay the Piper who had a spin round Weatherby on the same card as Tommy's Oscar. All exciting horses and the right type of horses that I think we want to see. National Hunt breds, pointing backgrounds. And Tommy's Oscar was beaten by a Pam Sly horse, Take It Easy, in a race on quick ground at Weatherby last week, which I don't think played to his strengths as much as it did the winners, who's basically a speed horse, Pam Sly. Her record at that track's amazing. I think he was probably laid out for it. But Tommy's Oscar, if ever you're looking for the characteristics of a horse that will make a better chaser, so you want the enthusiastic demeanour, bold jumper, I mean, he ticks all those boxes. And I think if they went novice handicap chasing with him next time, he'd basically be a banker. And a bit like Matt's saying with Paul Nicholls picking his targets carefully with Next Destination, the Hamiltons aren't the type of operation that will be running him 10 or 15 times. And if you're backing him, you're racking up a big level stakes loss. He might run 4 or 5 times for the remainder of the season. But if you can't win novice handicaps and open novices in the north, I'd be extremely surprised.
Tommy's Oscar, interesting chaser to follow for Dan. I should mention at this point, the book, the Horses to Follow book from Timeform, is out now to buy exclusively on Amazon. If you just go there and search Timeform Horses to Follow, you'll find it, and it's $10.95, great value, 140 pages, 50 prospects to follow from the UK, 10 more from Ireland, crucial, as you can see from last season's Cheltenham Festival, and the stats, a season review from last season, and Ante-post advice as well. So well worth the $10.95, the Horses to Follow book. Right then, let's crack on with our novice to follow. I'll kick off this one because he's in the book. Sam Barton for the Emma Lavelle team. In the Trevor Hemmings silks, the late Trevor Hemmings, I think we're still going to see his horses in the same silks this season. And Sam Barton is definitely a novice chaser to follow, I think. He started from a perch of 1-3-2, so I'd expect to see him in novice handicap chases. And he won a very nice Doncaster novice hurdle last season that worked out really well, and ended up being 4th in the EBF final, staying on nicely. And we've seen that EBF final has been a springboard for major talents before, including in these colours. Many clouds came from that race, of course, before he went on to Grand National glory. And I think Sam Barton is a horse that can progress through the novice chase ranks, might even be contesting graded races by the end of the season, but certainly in the early months, he's one to follow it in novice handicap chases. Probably progressing in distance as well, I would think, as the season goes on. That's my novice to follow, chaps. Dan? Who's yours?
I'm going novice hurdles, if that's okay. And again, I mean, maybe I'm copping out here, but I'm going for a horse that hasn't run over hurdles yet. But I've seen him at Warwick the other week, a horse called Fine By Me of Nigel Twiston Davis's. Now, I grant you the stables, novices can sometimes take a bit of coordinating, and I think they get better with practice and experience. You don't associate the sort of horse he is really, because he's such a unit, with being a really nimble hurdler. But I get, certainly looking at him physically, he is as impressive a looking horse as you will get. He ran in that Warwick bumper, it was his second run in a bumper, and as with the first at Worcester, the race just didn't show him in the best light. He's a staying horse, undoubtedly. It was a crawl and sprint, but it was encouraging to see he didn't drop away once he was put under pressure. He did rally late on to regain a minor placing, so I think he's interesting for when they go up in trip. And it might be novice handicaps, again, over hurdles later in the season, soft ground, heavy ground, places like Hereford, where there's time between the obstacles and he can get some winding up. But physically, he's as good looking a horse as I've seen on the race course lately. And for that reason, I'm hoping Twister gets him intensively skilled and we get a fluent display from early doors.
Fine By Me for Dan. Matt, who's your novice?
Yeah, novice chaser, Scoop. Annual Invictus is the horse, trained by Chris Gordon. Big fan of Chris's. He's just a really, really nice prospect. Ran in the Betfair Hurdle. Connections made a pretty bold move to throw him into that race. He was ended the season rated 136 over hurdles, having won a couple of times on soft ground at Plumpton, small fields, but he impressed me. He was staying on that day at Newbury, and he made a really nice start over fences at Utoxeter this season in one of the better novice chasers, I'd say, in run so far in Britain. He was second to Favre of Dan Skelton's horse. So yeah, loads more to come from Annual Invictus.
Annual Invictus for Matt. It's not all about the championship races in the Horses to Follow book. There's lots of handicappers and dark horses as well. And we're going to talk about handicappers now, and we'll start with you, Dan. You've picked out one that could come through the ranks.
Yeah, he's already won a race in a handicap over hurdles. That's easy as that for Venetia. I thought he was a proper prospect. He went 2 from 2 in bumpers, and to say he's a big staying type, the way he won at Musselburgh on his second outing under a penalty was pretty staggering, really. He's just got that classic Venetia profile, looks a mudlark, plenty of size to him. He'll make a chaser later on. I quite like that angle with him, that if the ceiling's reached over timber, they can switch to larger obstacles, and I'm sure it'll suit him. He does look a bit uncoordinated, but on bad ground at Chepstow in his final start, he put it together completely and obliterated a pretty good field of mid-range handicappers. And if he doesn't continue progressing this season, I'll be absolutely staggered. So as long as he keeps that fluency and he's jumping and cuts out the mistakes, I mean, I think there could be 20, 30 pounds of improvement in him.
One to follow, easy as that. Mine is Gowell Road for Nigel Twiston Davis. He was a good novice last season, beat a good horse in good ball at Newbury, winning a couple of times at Newbury, and then ran in the county hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. I think it was a bit too much too soon for him, but I loved his reappearance at Chepstow only a week or so ago in the Silver Trophy handicap hurdle at the Welsh track. He was too keen early doors, the ground was too quick for him, but he shaped really nicely with a view to dropping back in trip on softer winter ground from a perch of 134. I think he could be Nigel Twiston Davis's 2-mile hurdle horse in like the Great Wood, perhaps even the Betfair Hurdle further down the line. For Gowell Road for me as a handicapper, Matt?
Yeah, well, I'm back with Venetia Williams and another horse rated 134, Faranet. French import. We've been there many, many times, haven't we, with Venetia's French imports. They know what they're looking for, and I think they've got a nice one here. He was second, first time out for the yard. Went one better at Sandown in over 2 miles, 4 furlongs. He went up £9 for that, but I think there's a bit more room for improvement there. 134 again. Strong stayer at a mile, 2.5 miles. I do wonder, I suspect before long we might see him over 3, but looking at Venetia's record in those nice 2 mile 5 handicaps around Cheltenham, he could be one for that. A grey, strong stayer, really toughs it out, a good attitude.
New Sapage.
Faranet. Time has beaten us, but we're going to finish off with our Ante-post advice for the 2021-22 National Hunt season. Who wants to go first here, gents?
Well, I think it's sensible if I go first, because I sort of gave it away at the top of the video.
You go, Matt.
Galois in the Mares Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. Look, Willie Mullins, I think he's only won one of the last 5 editions of this race. I'm not sure what he has been playing at. But he did win the previous 8. I'll put that down there. So obviously a fantastic record. And like I said, she's a mare who was just really coming into her own at the back end of last season. I think Willie's on record saying as well that training up to Cheltenham, he hadn't necessarily been hard enough on her, but she's a really tough, hardy mare. A horse that he feels as though getting more work into her before she races is a good thing. And I think we'll see her out a fair bit this season. Definitely a horse to follow. There's a strong programme for mares around 2.5 miles. Willie knows it well, of course, and it all ends up at the festival.
Cheltenham Festival bet for Matt. I'm going to go next, Dan, because
That's fine.
I think you're going to finish
Then
with the Cheltenham
people can
Festival.
turn off because I don't think they'll.
Mine's in the King George. I think 5-1 Clanders Oboe is a massive price. I just think the Irish, they don't tend to come over for the King George much these days. Certainly not in vast number anyway, especially they've obviously got their own Grade 1 at that time of year. You absolutely know Clanders Oboe is going to rock up for the King George. He's won it twice. I think Paul Nicholls might even go there fresh with him this year and just hammer him at the King George. He's a different horse for me in the cheap pieces. Finished his season last season with a couple of Grade 1 wins. I'm sure there's more Grade 1 wins in this horse. He reminds me of the Silviniaco Conti project that Nicholls had. When he applied the cheap pieces to him, he won another 3 or 4 Grade 1s. I think it's the same with Clanders Oboe. And we know how much he loves Kempton. We know how much he loves the King George. 5-1 for me, a good bet at Christmas. And Dan, you can finish with your Cheltenham Festival wager.
Same colours, hopefully slightly swifter horse in terms of pace. I'm just a big fan of Hitman for the same connections, Nicholls and Jed Mason, and it takes a lot for me to tip a horse when Sir Alex Ferguson is listed in the name of owners as an ardent Manchester City fan. But I wish him very well, particularly with this horse this year, because I look at that market and it is clearly cornered around 2 horses. I mean, you've got an Ergemine who could topple Shishkin, but there probably won't be a lot between them. And after that, you're 16s plus. Now, I tried the same project with Grenadine last season. It took a while in coming to fruition. He eventually proved himself a pretty top-class 2-mile chaser. But I get the sense that Hitman might be a bit more precocious than him. He's done a bit more so far. I thought he went like the best horse at Aintree and didn't get the trip. I envisage he'll be a Howland Gold Cup reappearer. He'll probably win that race, I think, because I think he'll just be a bit too progressive for the sorts of horses that run in it. And I can see him at 33s for a champion chase. I don't think it's going to take much for him to establish himself as clear third best in that market when you look at the gap between the big two and those that are basically filling, and that's what they are doing, between those two and Hitman at 33. So I'm hoping his season goes as smoothly as it ought to, and we're discussing him as a potential lively one for the Queen Mother in March.
Lovely stuff. That concludes the video preview of the National Hunt season 2021-22. Don't forget to search Timeform Horses to Follow in Amazon for your copy for $10.95. Great value book with 140 pages of jam-packed information. Thank you for watching and enjoy the jump season.